Welcome to the England pod. All England, all the way to Nations League glory? Maybe. It could be. 3,500 England fans were out in Athens tonight, enduring a seemingly shambolic set of circumstances getting into the ground, but enjoying a 3-0 England win. I enjoyed it. I'm Ali Maxwell. I got Dave Walker, got George Elek with me, and this was good. Good fun as well. A 1-0 goal set up by Madueke, scored by Ollie Watkins, starting over Harry Kane. A 2-0 goal in the second half, scored by the back of the Greek goalkeeper after a Jude Bellingham drive and shot came back off the post. And then the coup de grace, the icing on a lovely cake. Curtis Jones with a back heel on debut to win it 3-0 for England. That means if we beat Ireland on Sunday, we will win Nations League Group B2 and we will win promotion back to the big time. Happy, lads?
We've always dreamed about, isn't it? Getting promotion out of Group B in the Nations League. It's all about 8 years of hurt. Really happy. I think it's good. As you say, it was an enjoyable watch. I think that Greece certainly played a part in that because of the way that they approached the game, their relentless pressing out of possession, their desire at 1-0. It didn't, you messaged our WhatsApp group at half time and said, "Can be quite interesting if it's 1-0 with 20 minutes to go because there's a chance that Greece might sit off and basically take the permutation that would mean that it would be down to goal difference in the last games on Sunday." But they continued throwing men forward, which is basically why we scored. When you look at the way the goals came, both kind of transitional moments. But I'm just really happy that for Lee Carsley, who is about to set sail into the under-21 sunset, or maybe even the Coventry sunset, given that he's currently second favourite for that job, which seems unlikely. That his legacy, I think, depending on what happens on Sunday, for him to put right one of the most probably embarrassing home defeats in recent history a few weeks ago, to be dealt the blow of basically having his whole squad decimated and losing 9 senior players and most of the goals outside of Harry Kane within the squad, to bring through a lot of players that he knows very well and probably fast track their progression to the senior team and beat a team in Greece who it's kind of frustrating, I guess, for him, where the public perception is that we should be beating Greece and doing so fairly comfortably, and that was reflected in the commentators' comments during the game as well. But this is a side that hadn't conceded a goal since drawing 2-2 with France at home quite a long time ago. They are dominant at home. They don't concede many chances, and they're a pretty good side. So for this, effectively kind of a hybrid between England B and England under-21, beating Greece 3-0 away from home is a really good result. Not just a regulation win, it's a great result. Albeit I would say that my man of the match would have to be Jordan Pickford for pulling off 2 saves that were not just good saves, but saves that I don't think you'd expect a keeper to make. 2 shots from the Greek, from Tsimikas in the first half, and I don't know who it was in the second half, but you'd anticipate both those shots would go in, and Pickford made 2 massive saves at 1-0 to keep the scoreline up.
I thought it was interesting to see that team and that lineup in the first half. Scored the early goal, so that settled us down, and we were playing quite well, even though the Greeks did come back into it. But in terms of their pressure, but I was sitting there and thinking, you know what, this is a good team. These are good players. We're missing lots of players. If Saka was there, if Rice was there, if Foden was there, if Palmer was there, they'd all expect themselves to be starting, and there would be that conundrum of which ones start. How do we get Foden and Palmer in? What about Bellingham? That's before we even get to Harry Kane. And I just thought it was quite nice that we had a balanced team full of good players who looked really good. And it just sort of gave me pause for thought in terms of, we touched on this a little bit in the summer before the tournament and around those selection dilemmas. In terms of international football, we don't have to fit all of our best players on the pitch all the time. We can pick the best team for the game and a balanced team that works and that functions. And it was really nice to see a well-functioning football team out there for England.
Yeah, I said on the preview pod that I felt that, all being well, the tactics that Carsley has implemented in his interim spell will act as quite a nice bridge between Southgate and Thomas Tuchel. And I really don't think that can be underplayed. And I think tonight is another good example of it. We've scored goals under Lee Carsley of the quality and the type that we very, very rarely scored under Southgate. And I think there is an extent to which what he has empowered the players to do in possession, particularly at the back, and suiting the players that he selects, in particular Gomez in previous games and Jones in this game, and empowering the centre-backs to play short when necessary. I think that helps create an England team where it doesn't matter so much if you have your so-called best 11 starting each time, and if you're missing one or two, or as the case was, 5 probable starters, then you've got no chance of replicating a coherent performance. If you have a style of play that suits the players that you have, and they're really well coached in it, and it's a style that they're all comfortable in, which they are because that's how they play at club level, then this should be the result. We should be able to come into a camp with a third of the initial squad being withdrawn and bring in excellent Premier League players, Curtis Jones, Ollie Watkins, Lewis Hall. These guys are, in England terms, they're not big names, but these are some of the, they're playing for the best teams in the world, basically. They're excellent, almost world-class footballers who probably will be quite soon and will be considered quite soon if they keep playing like this. So I'm really, really happy. I think George is right to bring up Pickford. I actually thought of something you said after the reverse game, which we lost, George, which was like, the only real difference was that Greece kind of took their chances and we didn't, and it looks horrendous. Well, we kind of get the other side of it here, don't we? Where, we could be 2-1 down for sure, and it's thanks to Pickford that we weren't. So that the narratives that we spin are often outcome-based, even more so as we record straight after the final whistle. And I think we have to recognise Pickford's importance in that. I mean, it was a game of spells, wasn't it? We started really well, really encouraging, scored a great goal. The first 20 minutes was brilliant. And then from 20, I think we had 4 shots in the first 20 minutes, 70% possession. Then they had a spell. Perhaps unsurprisingly, a team that have lost 2 of their last 24 home games, both of them 1-0 to Spain and the Netherlands, are quite good at playing at home, and they know how to play at home. They had a spell where they had 3 shots in 20 minutes and we didn't have any, and they had more of the ball. And then quite important for me was 5 minutes to end the first half, where I felt like we were kind of reeling. We put our foot on the ball, and in the last 5 minutes, looking at whoscored.com, we had 89.8 possession, and it finished with a ball through to Watkins running one-on-one, and he couldn't quite get the shot away. And if we'd scored that goal, I think that would have been a reflection of the sorts of positive improvements and things that Carsley's implemented. This idea that we can just look after the ball for a bit and calm things down, tire out the opposition, and also, as we saw for the second goal and the third goal, we can play forward when we invite them onto us. We can play forward quickly, with quality, with ball carriers, and with electric pace as well. So I think, again, in the second half, it was spells, wasn't it? We had a great move after 48 minutes. Curtis Jones started it from inside our own box. It's a sort of short, frankly, terrifying build-up that we executed brilliantly and got away down the right-hand side. The commentator on ITV said, England have got away with it there, which made me incredibly angry, because that is literally everything that Carsley's been trying to coach them over the last 3 camps. And then we had a chance from Rico Lewis. We had Jude hit the post with a header. Then they had their spell with the Pickford saves, and then we win it towards the end. In terms of the starting lineup and anyone that you want to pick out outside of Pickford who you felt had a really good game, Dave?
I've just voted on the official FA man of the match. I just saw a notification on my phone saying who's your choice of man of the match. The 4 options that it gave were Madueke, Gahey, Pickford, and my choice, Curtis Jones. I thought he was excellent tonight, even before his goal. I just thought he looked really comfortable. He was brave with his passing when he could be, as you said, in that little bit of build-up there in our own box at the start of the second half. But throughout the game, I thought he was good with his passing. He just looked comfortable. And I kind of forgot that it was his debut, because he was in the training squad, wasn't he, before the Euros? And I couldn't remember whether he got any minutes or anything. But he's been around for such a long time, it seems now, in the Liverpool team, coming through so young, that kind of surprised that it's his debut. It's taken so long for him to actually get his debut. But he looked really good, and to cap it off with that goal, that lovely little flick, finishing off a really nice move from Gibbs-White, and Bowen played his part in that as well. I thought it was great to see, and it just made me think, like I was saying before, it just made me think, if some of the other players were available, would he be playing? And I got a bit carried away, maybe. I was texting you guys in the second half saying, maybe if we put Saka in instead of Madueke, would this team have won the Euros? And maybe not.
What's Noni done wrong? Why are you taking him out? He's class.
Yeah, no, fair play. But like just
didn't
having
track
that,
his man. Didn't track his man for the Simicast chance.
But I thought Jones and Gallagher looked really nice as a sort of midfield partnership, and we just didn't see any of that sort of balance and harmony in the summer, I guess. But yeah, I thought Jones was man of the match for me. But yeah, Pickford's saves were obviously crucial as well.
I think Madueke and Gordon for that first 25 minutes or so. I mean, having watched England for a lot to the last decade or so, really lack genuine wingers. I love that Madueke is very unique in that he is obviously playing as a kind of on the wrong side effectively, but he's still very, very keen to go around the outside before coming back inside again. Like he's a winger that gets to the byline before moving on to his left foot rather than always constantly cutting inside early, as is normally the case now. And that makes him incredibly difficult to defend against. I don't think he's obviously technically very gifted. I don't think he's as good a footballer as, for example, Bukayo Saka, but I think in terms of actual style and the way that he looks to manipulate the ball and the way that he looks to progress makes him very unique. I thought he was very good and gives us another option. I think it was very obvious as well that Lee Carsley had told the fullbacks basically not to put in balls from deep, because quite often Kyle Walker was getting on the ball in areas where normally you'd see him swinging across. It was very evident that we were kind of recycling back through midfield too. And also just a mention for Lee Carsley and his decision to drop Harry Kane, which was met with derision for the most part by the media, by most coverage around the game today. No one seemingly could understand why he had done it, and it was very obvious in the first half why he had done it. Not only the goal, which frankly is a goal that Harry Kane has scored many times, and if he'd been on the pitch after 7 minutes, he probably would have been on the end of Madueke's cutback to put it away. But more stuff like the chance you mentioned, Danny, with the ball played just before half time where Watkins couldn't really get out of his feet. But if Harry Kane is on the pitch, then you're offering absolutely no threat to running in behind. And I thought when Kane, it was the kind of attacking quartet around him that was dominating the final third there, and he was a bit of a passenger, to be honest. A couple of kind of aerial duels won, a couple of like good bits of hold up play, but it's not really what you're after. And he shot from range at one point when he had runners either side of him where he probably shouldn't have done so. So it's interesting. I definitely think Harry Kane has a big future as an England player, but I think it is absolutely essential that from now on, he isn't the first name on the team sheet, and he's selected when the time is right that he's going to be selected, probably against teams who are going to sit in incredibly low and we're going to dominate possession. And in other games like today, where you're going to play a team where you're going to attack more in transition, we have other profiles of striker that fit better, and that was the case.
It was interesting that Carsley decided to start Watkins and not play Kane, and I was just wondering how Kane would have felt after kind of going out on a limb in the pre-match press conference the other day and being so strong in terms of what he was saying about those players that haven't turned up for this squad. Playing the role of England captain. I'm the senior player. England's more important than anything else. And then off you go, Harry. You're on the bench, son.
He is someone who has very little ego compared to most superstars. And so I like to think that he will have been all right with it, and he might have partly understood it or had it explained to him. I have to hope so. He seems like a pretty grown-up guy. He's not, and this is really important to me, he's not Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal, and I don't want him to be like that for us, because I think it's basically a monkey on your back to have that situation where you basically have this like God figure that has to play and who dictates everything that happens around him. That's incredibly unhealthy for us, and thankfully Kane isn't that sort of character. But it also means hopefully we don't have that sort of situation where Tuchel feels like he has to start. It might be that he's the right option, as George said, for certain games, but I don't believe that he is the right option for every game. And I think we've seen that pretty clearly in the last two major tournaments. The idea that he's the only one that can score goals is ridiculous. The idea that he always scores is also wrong. And people get upset when you fiddle around with penalties and statistics and use it to suit a narrative. And I'm going to do that here. But if you take Harry Kane's penalties away from his England goals tally, that's 22 goals subtracted from his tally. He's got 46 in 101 games. And if you take all the minutes that he's played and you work out how many non-penalty goals per 90 he's scored, It's 0.53, so about 1 in 2, which is good. It's not absolutely incredible. It doesn't mean he plays every time he starts or he guarantees us a goal. Ollie Watkins has played most of his minutes off the bench. He's only played about 650 minutes for England, but he scored 5 goals. His non-penalty goals per 90 for England is 0.74 now. He's scoring at a higher rate than Kane if you take out penalties for England. He scored 32 club goals since the start of last season. Like, it's not Kane or a non-league player. And this comes back to our earlier point. This squad is so much better and deeper, not just the bench, but the guys from 20th to 30th in the pecking order and 30th to 40th in the pecking order was so much stronger. And I really hope that that can be used in a way that makes the collective super strong and make us not so focused on individual players and this like Roy of the Rovers style view of English senior men's football, which still seems to pervade, even though football discourse at club level has gone so much further and advanced so much forward. So yeah, that was an interesting part of the team selection, and obviously with Watkins getting the early goal, that'll feel, I'm just pleased for Carsley to kind of make a big call and be justified, having been somewhat ridiculed for daring to not play a recognised number 9 in that game last time. In terms of anything that wasn't so good, I mean, it's not unusual for a team to focus their attacks down one side. We obviously did that down the right-hand side, and we got a goal from it. Quite a lot of openings in the first half, but it does mean that, again, that left side just kind of avoided the issue, really, right? Rico Lewis, a right footer playing left back, drifted into midfield as you'd expect him to do a few times, but wasn't really needed to help Jones and Gallagher and centre backs in build up. So ended up only having 19 touches in the first half, which was the third fewest in the whole team. And then we had that bit of chicanery at halftime from Carsley. Funky subs, as you said, George.
Yeah, I think when we saw Lewis Hall getting ready to come on, the assumption was it would be for Lewis, but instead we saw Lewis shift out to the right-hand side. Conser came off. Assume it's injury, but we don't know either way right now. And Kyle Walker moved into right side of centre-back, where he did pretty well, I thought. A couple of moments where his pace looked very useful. I mean, I'd love to know when Kyle Walker's going to slow down, because he still seems to be the fastest footballer in the world at his ripe old age. I mean, did it work? I don't really know. I mean, I thought Lewis Hall looked very, very competent in possession. I think defensively, he looked okay. I don't think he did a great one-on-one mod job on his winger, but he by no means was being burnt up every time. But it was at a time in the game where Greece were kind of got into the ascendancy, but with the players that we had, it kind of suited us, I guess, to play on the break to an extent. And that was the other interesting thing. I thought even in the first half, when we had loads of the ball, we still looked best when springing from deep. There was that unbelievable kind of double pivot, double pirouette, I should say, by Bellingham on the right-hand channel, where he was then kind of put himself through one-on-one before eventually being tackled. A couple of moments from kind of Curtis Jones and Conor Gallagher winning the ball deep and driving up the pitch. And that is going to be something interesting for Tuchel, because Thomas Tuchel's sides are very possession-heavy and like to dominate the ball. And I do kind of think with the players we've got at our disposal, we need to find ways to ensure that in games we are at times attacking, using fast breaks to our benefit, because it suits the way we play, especially when Kane's not leading the line.
I'm just delighted that the disgraceful scenes of the laser pen being shone on England attacks from the Greece fan didn't end up being too important and significant in the end. And shout out those England fans, 3,500 of them. We've had a few messages from people who were there, and we're certainly not on the ground journalists as Stan Collymore was at Euro 2016, but just to pass on some messages that things sounded pretty bleak for the England fans trying to get into the ground. Really bad setup, not great as they told it, not great behaviour from the Greek police as well. And I think that there was a feeling from some in the ground that they had to leave early because they knew they were going to get held back for so long. And so just, for those people who spend so much time and money supporting England home and away, and their support is always incredible, I think it's really upsetting and frustrating to hear that they've not been treated well out there. So hopefully tiny solace and consolation will be as you guys start travelling back on Friday morning. We've got a pod out for you to listen to as you make your way to Wembley on Sunday. It would be really great to hear from anyone who was out there, not necessarily about the bad stuff. It's just, it would be great to start building a community of fans who are going to games, fans who are watching games, wherever, to be honest. We really enjoyed the community aspect of the pod over the summer during the Euros, and we want to keep that going as we move into the new era, the new feed in 2025. So always just drop us a message on Instagram. It's probably the best place for it now that Twitter is such a shambles. So we love hearing from you. We do see the messages, and we'll always try and get back to you. So let us know if you're out there. Send us any pictures. That would be absolutely fantastic. England are heading back home, back to Wembley. We host Ireland on Sunday with a strong chance, if we do the business, of winning Nations League Group B2 to wave goodbye to Lee Carsley and end with some happy memories.
It is still weird, actually, hearing Sam Matterface at the end say that England need to win on Sunday to finish the job and clinch automatic promotion. And it's strange hearing England being talked about as if they were Leeds or someone in the Championship. But hey, that's where we are. That's the beauty of the Nations League. I think wanted to touch on one thing I wanted to touch on as well was Jude Bellingham, and I don't know whether this isn't based on any data or anything really. It's just based on vibes. But in the first half, particularly, and before Kane came on, it just felt right to me that he was there playing sort of number 10, but obviously roaming around. As you mentioned, George had that great moment out on the right, and he's got such a good ability to just somehow wriggle his way through situations when it looks like he's lost the ball, and he just emerges from tackles and he's got space and he's just won it. And I just think it was a vision perhaps of what we'll see in the future as we go forward, and as at some point in the next 3 years, to be optimistic for Kane, when after Kane's gone and stops playing a major part for England, Bellingham is going to be the main man. He feels like he should be anyway. And it just felt right, him being in that number 10, not having to kind of worry about Kane's presence, running beyond Kane or making space for Kane who wants to drop in as well and sort of play in those same spaces. And again, I just thought, it just looked good. Him getting the ball, spraying it out, running forward, creating chances, and he won't get credited with the goal, but he scored the crucial goal which really turned the match.
3 cracking goals, 3 points. It's probably worth noting that Ireland beat Finland tonight 1-0, which means that they are sure to avoid relegation. They will finish third no matter what happens. Does that reduce to a tiny extent their motivation for this game? Well, it's Ireland coming to play England at Wembley, so probably not. Evan Ferguson scored their goal. It looks like Kelleher made some quite good saves in the second half. So we will be back after the England-Ireland game on Sunday. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on the game at NTT20pod on Twitter, on Instagram. Let's keep the conversation going, and we will be back on Sunday with another reaction pod. Thanks for listening to the England pod. Tell your friends about it. Cheers. Go well.